Asia-Pacific markets fluctuate as Trump signals a softer approach to China trade tensions. Boeing planes won't be bought by China because of the tariff war with Washington. Now President Trump is signaling a U-turn. Meanwhile, we look at the U.S. economic feud as President Trump wants lower rates while Fed Chair Powell warns of inflation and markets are caught in the middle. Hello, I'm Taiba Aiden with the latest business and finance news here on TRT World. Asia-Pacific markets traded mixed on Thursday, tracking gains on Wall Street as a possible thaw in US-China trade war fuels investor optimism. Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 rose over 1%, extending the previous day's gains. South Korea's Kospi slipped by 0.47%, while Australia's S&P ASX 200 rose by 0.56%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index slipped around 0.3%, and mainland China's CSI 300 traded flat. South Korea's GDP contracted 0.1% in the first quarter of this year, missing the 0.1% rise expected, marking the first contraction in its economy since 2020 as construction activity plunged. Overnight stateside, the three major averages closed higher on hopes that US-China trade tensions could soon ease. Let's get more on this now with Jameel Ahmad. He's chief analyst at GTC. Now, Jameel, it's quite a mixed picture following Wednesday's rebound. What's behind this?
Well, as I've been saying for some time now, to use a metaphor, this trade tariffs, trade war is turning into somewhat of a TV series. And you don't know where the plot is going to twist next. And as you're seeing, the villain in this case, which would be the United States, because it's the aggressor from these tariffs and so forth, seems to once again be dialing back or rolling back some of those tariffs. And that's why financial markets are a little bit more optimistic today. But again, we never know when this plot or the narrative is going to switch or twist. And as we've seen over the past couple of days, we've gone from being in an economic war with trade aggression to the IMF downgrading economic forecasts worldwide significantly, to threats about the Federal Reserve US Chair Jerome Powell and his position as the head of the central bank. Let's see what comes towards the end of the week. Of course, actions here speak louder than words. And should we have less of an aggressive tariff response, then financial markets can continue this optimistic, I would say, rebound. It's not quite a rally, it's a rebound from a significant period of losses. Then that might continue. But let's see what the US president and the White House say next, because nobody knows where things are going to go these days.
Right, and possible exemptions on automakers has boosted Asian car makers. How do you see it playing out at the moment?
Again, every day we're seeming to see a different industry or a different product come into these tariffs. It was pharmaceuticals last week, then it was a different industry the week before. Of course, many economies across the world, from Canada to Mexico, Germany, Japan, South Korea, are well known to be exporters, specifically of automobiles and vehicles in this case. So should we see a less aggressive tariff or tax on automobiles and cars, then this is positive for those sectors and those economies. But we still need to see what actually happens, because this plot keeps twisting in different directions. Let's see where we have continuity, and that's something investors don't have right now. It's a consistency when it comes to the tariff narrative.
Right, and let's take a quick look at South Korea's economy. We've heard that it's contracted for the first time in 4 years. It's been quite resilient up until now. So what's the contraction down to?
I agree with you. South Korea is one of those economies in the region that seems to have been resilient to global concerns. But right now we have a big period of uncertainty for the world economy, for industries that don't know where tariffs are going to head next, what impact it might have on economies, sectors, job creation. Of course, all of that uncertainty leads to less demand for other countries and economies' exports. South Korea is an export economy. That uncertainty has likely weighed into somewhat of the economic projections, and it can just be that, unfortunately, the global economy seems to be headed into another, I would say, somewhat negative spin. How long this pessimism lasts for depends on how long we have all of this uncertainty around the world economy, specifically on trade tariffs, which has already led to the sharp downgrade in economic growth from the IMF for 2025.
Right, we will leave it there. Jameel Ahmad, Chief Analyst at GTC, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, the